The PlayStation 2, Xbox and GameCube era was always a slightly uncanny console generation in my eyes. Graphical enhancements were rapid, and we saw much more believable representations of human actors compared to that of the PS1, N64 and Dreamcast era. Developers were really beginning to have the tools to play with the visual medium of games and craft some memorable stories. But 3D gaming was also in kind of a transitional period where graphics weren't yet up to par with what we'd see in films, or indeed real life, but they were good enough, and so it wasn't uncommon for games on these consoles to look slightly off or just completely disrupt your immersion. Some devs also just had a weird sense of humor and wanted to traumatize kids. There's a few games I could talk about when it comes to what scared me as a kid, but I have easily the most memories with the Tony Hawk games. I put so much time into them in my early days, and each one that I played managed to disturb me in some way. Sometimes I'd just run out of the room or avoid certain areas or menus, but some games I was too afraid of to even put the disc in. To be completely honest, I found the PlayStation 2 boot screen quite soothing, even as a kid. It's only when I would boot the console without a disc that I would feel unsafe. It's the silence, I think, and the void-like ambience, the swirling visuals. I don't really like sticking around on this screen for long. Once you're past that, you've got the production logos to watch, and every single Tony Hawk game has an animated intro for their developer, Neversoft. These pre-rendered videos are pretty much the first thing you see in the game, and so you have to view them every time, or at least see the very beginning of them before you can skip them. I'm going to go through all of them now because maybe some of you are still asking, how can an old game be scary? I'll start off with Pro Skater 3, because I didn't play the first two games as a kid. Honestly, I'm pretty sure the PlayStation 1's boot screen was enough to scare me shitless. Right after a silent loading screen where you're left to your own thoughts, Neversoft pulls off a really mean trick, because this is when the Activision O2 Sports video plays. And the thing about that is Activision O2. Then you've got a powerful guitar chord, some gross looking 3D models, a dead stitched together body laying on the floor, all taking place in a black void as the backdrop. I don't like the eyeball sticking itself inside the guy. I don't like the eyeball becoming bigger as the models are clearly swapped about here. I don't like this purely expressionless eye just staring at me as it does tricks. And I don't like the thought of it bailing so hard that the eyeball just pops right off its socket again. It's as gory as you can get without any actual gore. It makes me squeamish as an adult, and it made me terrified of this game as a small child. It could have been an eyeball in a jar, or a robot. But nah, they went for the Frankenstein vibe, much to the distress of children around the globe. Pro Skater 4's intro is gross. It's got a weird gorilla, it's got scary audio, and it's also in a black void. I don't think it's as bad as Pro Skater 3, but it's still kind of unsettling. The gross out factor is much more comical here, but that was never the part that used to unsettle me. I do like that the gorilla is a reference to how Pro Skater 4 was the first Tony Hawk game to have animals, though. Interestingly, Neversoft started getting more playful with their intros from here onwards. Underground's intro is definitely the creepiest of them all with its film grain style. The music is stereotypically unsettling, and the sound effects are pretty visceral. Maybe they wanted some content for the Eric Sparrow haters, but I always used to run out of the room when this one would play, instead of just skipping it. I think the awful compression of the video, especially when you're watching it on a PS2, leaves a lot to the imagination for a child. Oh, it's because he's underground! THUG2's intro is much less scary by comparison. It smacks you right in the face with bright saturated colours and pleasant sounds in a comforting change of form. The violence is very playful, and the gore isn't overstated. Makes me wonder though what made them go for the alien theming this time around. I remember this intro so well, I used to watch it in full every time I booted up the game. Early on in the games, I think it's more important to talk about Neversoft's early efforts at graphics on the PS2, and how mixed their results were.
You know you want to check out my special tricks.
There's something about, let's say, unrealistic animations and early graphics that can really look off-putting and suck the safe feeling of immersion out of a child while they're playing a game. As you can see, the character models are a little rough in Tony Hawk's first PS2 title, so everyone looks a little bit off. They're convincing enough from the back, but you try to admire their features and it's definitely just a photo of a face stretched over a head. Ironically, one of the most convincing models is our eyeball skater from before. He doesn't look any less horrifying though.
Let's see you bust something out.
Pro Skater 3's loading icon is just a bit uncomfortable for me. Neversoft snuck their eyeball logo wherever they could in these games, and this is just another example of that. But I don't know. It's your only friend while you're waiting for your favourite level to load, and I don't deal with eye contact very well. The games to follow this one would just use a nice gradient bar, though maybe they lose a few style points for that. The main menu for this game also always felt a little bit empty. The music is a bop, but the skate shop you're in feels slightly, I don't know, liminal? Intangible? The fact that the tune fades out and back in whenever you do anything doesn't help either. Pro Skater 4 had Iron Maiden's mascot Eddie as an unlockable character, and he's incredibly animated. It's hard not to be a little terrified by him though. He's huge, he looks like a zombie, and he does this on the character's leg screen. When you're a kid, it looks to you like he's trying to jump out and attack you or something. There's way more movement on him than anything else on the menu, and it's completely silent, which just makes it scarier in a weird way. A jump scare is a lot scarier if it occurs in your happy place, like let's say a childhood video game, and something lunging towards you with no noise at all is way scarier than something making a loud noise. I have no evidence to back this up, but it's true. So once the PS2 era of THAW games had really kicked off, Neversoft were clearly given bigger budgets and had better expertise, so the creepy animations and odd graphical limitations had kind of passed. As the games went on, Neversoft tried to adopt new and unique aesthetics to fit the styles of the year, and some themes were a little bit more mature than years past. Underground is obviously the grittiest looking game of them all, as seen by the monster fella from before. It looks a lot less scary up close though. Aww. The menus here are all shadowy and cold, and sitting in those loading screens can feel lonely. After you've got through the intro, the next thing you see is this silhouette. This menu is definitely really cool, but it's also just really foreboding. A shadowy figure disjointedly doing tricks at complete random, silently. It's supposed to be your custom character, but that's not obvious when you're starting out. I never want to sit with this menu for too long. THUGPro, in comparison, was a lot more stylish and colourful, like a TV show, which is demonstrated perfectly in its menu. It still manages to represent your creator skater without being unsettling. There's also a stealth mission early on in the story of THUG 1 that always used to scare me.
Hey Sean, what are you doing out here?
You're thrust into a nighttime scene in a thunderstorm with shady drug dealers everywhere.
Wait kid, it's too dangerous!
You don't have your skateboard and you have to sneak past them while listening to a track that never plays in any other mission. I can't think of a single other mission in the game with unique music like this. Except the luau.
Mahalo! Welcome to the beautiful island of Hawaii.
This mission is so out of place that it's kind of unforgettable. It also sucks. Underground 2 was again a lot more pleasant with its orange colour scheme, blinking lights and game show format, but it had a lot of weird stuff in it too. I could never free skate in the New Orleans level without being afraid that I'd somehow accidentally knock over all the sequentially placed skulls in this graveyard and raise the dead. Even if I could get past that, there seems to be a misplaced trigger on this manhole cover designed just to scare me. Usually after raising the dead, it'd open up to reveal a portal to the underworld, but if you jump in the right spot, you can hear the screams of tortured souls without even letting them out. Yeah, those are stock screaming sound effects, but god, I still think they're horrifying to this day. Another mission also has you running over zombies while playing as the voodoo doctor after you've raised the dead. But these people used to be people. They were turned into zombies by whatever thing you did in the graveyard. When you complete the mission that saves the town, everyone who was a zombie turns back into a human. But then what happened to the 10 zombies that guy killed? Did they come back? Are they dead forever? In Skatopia, you've got Bigfoot as a playable character. I don't think he's that scary, but the one problem with him is that Paulie always used to unsettle me, not even because he's a heinous addition to this game, but because he's just too abrasive and vulgar. I never liked interacting with him, even as a kid. I have no idea who thought he was a good thing to include in a Tony Hawk game, but I guess I can't see that far into the past. The ending of THUGPro, though, is an assault on the senses.
I'm gonna blow this hellhole sky high!
Bam sets off a ton of fireworks to blow up Skatopia with a sequence where the bombs start beeping, fizzle, and explode as you escape.
We gotta get out of here! But let's take the critters with us!
It's stressful. And then you have Bam delivering the final line of the game with maniacal laughter as flames burn the whole level down.
We're up, but if you can bust Skatopia in one combo, you get 1,000 points. You know why? 'Cause it'll never happen! Ah!
Yeah, it sounds silly, but that voice line did give me some nightmares. So beating the story mode warps you to a bonus level named Pro Skater, and assaults your senses once again with a unique alien score. The shift in tone is insane here. You just celebrated finishing the game, and it's like your character is immediately fucking abducted by extraterrestrials. Your shit got moved to another dimension instantly. The music is, without understatement, terrifying, and there's beeping sounds and alien grunting noises everywhere you go. It's such an unfriendly environment to be in right off the back of a grand finale. The Mayan temple isn't much better. It's equally unfriendly, and the music is ominous as hell. Actually, hell is a lot less ominous by comparison, mostly because it gives you the game's soundtrack back.
He's a sweet soul.
Just don't turn the music off, or you'll hear this. This is probably the strangest level in the entire series with the way it makes you feel completely out of your depth. The games after this one didn't even try to top the level of weirdness. Also, the sequence where you dance with the devil at the end never really sat well with me. It's not actually scary, you know, but it's tonally uncomfortable. So, you beat story mode, and now you've beaten all the trials in the bonus level, so this is your final reward. The music you hear isn't congratulatory, it's kind of just mocking you. This is the everlasting fate of your custom character. This was the best conclusion to the Underground series they could give you. There's nothing left to do but sit in hell with this guy.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm here all eternity.
Sometimes you can really tell when a small team of devs cares about what they've made, when they've got the creative freedom to express themselves. There's about 20 people at Neversoft and 10 more at Activision credited for working on the first Pro Skater game. Of course the team would have grown over time, but these developers were clearly eager to put a piece of themselves in their humble work. Crude humor, staff cameos, sincere thank you messages to the players. The whole series managed to carry quite a homemade feel. So with all that in mind, who was the guy who kept trying to terrify kids with Easter eggs? What kind of sense of humor is that? In Pro Skater 3 it starts off pretty tame with the haunted house in suburbia. It's not that scary, but it's got some flying bats, flashes of lightning, and creepy ambience. It's definitely supposed to be more humorous than scary. Check out these raving skeletons. But then you can't make the same argument for Pro Skater 4, which takes it way further in the carnival level. Standing outside this horror ride you can hear screaming. Grind on this track and it'll teleport you straight into a swirling nightmare. It's basically a jump scare, and the sounds you hear in here are genuinely haunting. Surely you can agree this is acutely designed to frighten people, and it's even more bold to include something like that in a secret level. In Thug, there's something similar. You've got a demonic tiki statue holding a sign here in Hawaii, and you can just jump right into its mouth. You can kind of faintly hear the laughter from outside the tiki's mouth, but it's not impossible to find this by complete accident, so little me would just stay as far away from it as possible. Again, why did they make such a habit out of trying to terrify people? Who came up with this? Neversoft at this point had become pretty comfortable with their tech and knew how to get 3D characters looking their best. so it's less likely you'll be scared by innocuous graphical imperfections and jank. American Wasteland came out on the same console as Pro Skater 3, and you wouldn't think so. American Wasteland was one Tony Hawk game I used to play a lot because it was very approachable. With emo and Hollywood in the foreground, it was less hardcore. It had bright pink colors, it had a goofy story, it had Fall Out Boy. Not even any spooky Easter eggs in this one. I mean, some of the wacky comic illustrations by what's-his-name probably used to disturb me, but it definitely didn't make me afraid to play the game. The Day 1 chop trick had a Neversoft eyeball with arms as a prop instead of anything more reasonable. I do remember just avoiding this trick entirely, even though they give it to you in the story mode. I seemed to remember this pyramid in the skate ranch being a little spooky in the dark, so I went back and checked. Yeah, that's pretty surprising. I forgot just how much the skate ranch lights itself up at night. The standout scary moment in THAW for me is the helicopter chase at the end. That one was a little creepy, skating across the whole game world at nighttime, trying to avoid that huge spotlight. Maybe it's just the sound of a helicopter that makes me feel threatened. There's actually a lot of helicopters in Tony Hawk games, come to think of it. The Ruins level is exclusive to Classic mode, but it's definitely a memorable environment. Very haunting audio, no people around. Seems like an alien apocalypse, but it's also not made clear exactly what's going on.
Attention civilians. Report immediately to nearest collection sector.
I feel like something's gonna happen if I stick around in this level for too long. Also, for some reason I always misremembered the plot of American Wasteland and thought that Murphy betrays you at the last second. Maybe that's what made me dread doing that final mission so much. Project 8 wasn't so bad. I never really used to play it as a kid, so I don't have much to say about it. This year though, Neversoft decided to swap out their eyeball mascot for this gross alien skeleton baby. The way it splats on the ground all dripping with this greenish goo and picks its giant head up off the ground. Even now I still hate looking at it. Neversoft were great at making people squeamish. You can unlock it as a playable character too, alongside this voodoo doll who I also really don't care for. I can't exactly needle down why. And Zombie Officer Dick! This game was weird. Now Proving Ground, I genuinely never played until this very year, so I have even less to say about it. The visual identity of this game is so bland. It doesn't try to shock you or do anything like what even Project 8 did. The pre-rendered intro though might be the most difficult to watch Neversoft video of the whole series, by far. They made it so lifelike, it just makes my skin crawl every time. Definitely a difficult watch. I kinda love the pug, but I kinda hate it too. The content in the actual game is complete garbage. The missions are either boring or infuriating. There's no reward for completing everything, or collecting all the cash, or the gaps. Literally nothing except for all goals. Every single other game in the series had at least an acknowledgement of your achievement. A neat little pop-up saying, "Hey, you're a huge fan. You sure you didn't look these up on the internet or something? You should work at Neversoft." Literally anything. But nah, not this one. You can collect 100% of everything. There's even a checklist built into the game with progress bars to fill up. You can fill up all of them and genuinely nothing will happen. I wasted so much time to get it all, expecting maybe some fun cheats or secret characters, but no, those are all locked behind codes anyway. Where is the fun in that? Not that there's any fun in this game to begin with. Now, I'm surprised that despite all these unpleasant memories I'm still able to dig up, this is still my favourite series of games to go back and play ever. I think everyone has that one game that they love, even though it disturbs them for one reason or another. The PS2 era of gaming will always be looked back on with a good amount of intrigue. For the way uncanny graphics and animations can make us feel, for the visual charm that seemed to define it, and for how developers seem to try getting away with just the weirdest shit. We have weird and tonally inconsistent Easter eggs nowadays, of course, like in indie games, but it's a rarity with how modern graphics like to mask the meat and bones of game development. Everything just tries to look too professional nowadays, and something more down to earth like we got in those early days of 3D gaming is what comes off as the most memorable kind for me. And I'm not saying scaring children is a good life's passion or anything, but memories like these can make your relationship with the game really personal, and it's fun to look back on them. Maybe you could let me know what things used to scare you about your favorite games. Maybe it was the final boss from New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Just a guess.